Hello, Ghost of Lilacs here with the Joja Perfection Run. This series was recorded after the 1.6 update. I am playing on the Nintendo Switch with 0 mods. In this playthrough, I'll be catching all fish, cooking all foods, completing the museum, etc. I will not be completing the community center. This is not a speedrun or a seated playthrough. I'll be playing at my own pace while utilizing some traditional methods of money making. Let's get started. This is Ghost, who lives on Perfection Farm. Their favorite things are cats. I hadn't been to Grandpa's old farm in years, and nature had really reclaimed the land. I got to work right away chopping some trees, leaving the stumps so they could continue to drop seeds for field snacks or to propagate future saplings. I gathered enough wood to make my first chest. I hoed up the dirt and planted my seeds. I was going to keep to an ordinary pattern, one that would make things easier for when I'd eventually have sprinklers. I was determined to try to meet all my neighbors today, so I headed into town. I purchased seeds from the shifty-eyed looking owner of the general store, Pierre. I bought a little bit of everything. I wasn't following an exact plan for my farm. It wasn't as if I was only growing ingredients for pizza or something. I returned home and expanded my crop area. I had found some mixed seeds while clearing weeds, so those went into the ground as well. I headed south into the cinder sap forest and found a patch of spring onions. I scooped them up and returned to town, introducing myself as the new farmer who had moved onto Grandpa's farm. I found more mixed seeds and planted those before heading to bed early. I had a big day ahead of me, and I would need as much energy as possible. I reached foraging level 1. On day 2, I watered my crops and noticed I had a letter. It was from Willie, the fisherman, who asked me to meet him at the beach. I gathered enough wood to craft a chest and left my farm. At the beach, Willie gave me his old fishing rod. I'm not bad at fishing, but I don't really enjoy it. Until my crops are ready to harvest, I'll need a way to make money, so fishing it is. I found some beach forage I sold to Willie before returning to town. Before I started fishing, I ran into Haley. I had met everyone in town and had to give someone a gift. I couldn't think of anyone more deserving of the daffodil I had picked than her. I fished for the rest of the morning into the afternoon. I stopped to gather spring onions and fished in the forest. I had picked up some horseradish while foraging and crafted some mixed spring seeds that I planted. I reached level 1 fishing. It was a cold and rainy morning on day 3. Clint was waiting on my porch and gave me blueprints for constructing a smelting furnace. I didn't have enough copper to make one now, but I'll be spending a lot of time in the mines once they are available. The rain handled the day's watering duties, so I foraged for spring onions. I went to the mountains and caught lake fish throughout the afternoon. That evening, I stopped by the saloon to deliver green algae to Dr. Harvey. This was the first of what would be dozens of fetch quests. I headed to the beach where I fished up a few eels before returning home. I gained 2 levels of fishing and was now at level 3. I had one goal on day 4, and that was to purchase a bigger backpack. As it turned out, enterprising shopkeeper Pierre was already on top of things and had sent me a flyer hawking his wares. I stopped by the cindersap forest to collect spring onions and delivered a sunfish to Granny Evelyn. I picked up my backpack upgrade and headed to the beach, where I spent most of the afternoon fishing. I delivered an anchovy to Willie and received a prize token. I sold my fish and went into town. I exchanged the token for 12 carrot seeds. I returned home and planted them. I still had some energy left, so I cleaned up the farm. I cleared a path to the south exit of the farm to make traveling a little easier. I reached level 2 foraging. On the morning of day 5, Marnie was on my porch with the cutest little kitten. It was a stray, and Marnie thought that my farm could use a good mouser. I agreed and named the cat Coconut. A letter from Joja informed me that the mines were open, which was perfect because my parsnips were ready to harvest. I was going to keep a few and save the rest to fuel my mining adventure. I stopped in town for more seeds when I saw Mayor Lewis outside of the community center. I picked up kale, potatoes, and parsnip seeds. I planted them and headed to the mountains. Marlin gave me a rusty sword and I was ready to get mining. It was a good luck day, but that really wasn't reflected in the state of the mines. Plenty of beasties with an average amount of copper. On floor 10, I obtained the leather boots, which will add some much-needed defense. I pushed and pushed to get to level 15. Rather than walk home, I made my way to the surface and passed out in the entrance. I reached level 1 farming and level 1 mining. On day 6, I awoke in my bed. It seemed someone had brought me home. A quick look in my mailbox confirmed that Dr. Harvey had taken care of me, and since I was as broke as a joke, he couldn't charge me. I crafted some furnaces and started smelting copper bars while I watered my crops. I brought my geodes into town for the blacksmith to smash and donated the minerals to the museum. I was awarded some cauliflower seeds. I had picked up a fetch quest the day before and delivered a parsnip to Sam. I returned to my farm and crafted a scarecrow before planting my cauliflower. I traveled to the mountains and delivered a leek to Linus, finishing another fetch quest. I mined the rest of the evening. I found quite a bit of copper and made it to level 20, where I found a magnet ring. I reached level 2 mining and level 1 combat. On day 7, I tuned into the local cooking program, Queen of Sauce, and learned how to make stir-fry. I had kale, potatoes, and carrots ready to harvest on my farm. I was going to hold on to the carrots for my visits to the mines. I stopped in the cindersap forest for a massive haul of spring onions. In town, I found the book Jack Be Nimble, Jack Be Thick, and by reading it, I gained +1 defense. It was Mayor Lewis's birthday, and I gave him a daffodil. I moseyed up to the community center and started the quest so that I can start saving for that Joja membership. Gus had posted a request for a daffodil. When I delivered it, he gave me a prize token that I exchanged for a peach sapling. I'm not going to plant it right now. I will have a greenhouse soon enough, and then I can have peaches year-round. Millions of peaches, peaches for free. I headed back into the forest to clean up some of the debris. I found some mixed seeds I planted before heading to bed. That night, I heard an airplane circling above my farmhouse and the thud of little boxes hitting my roof. I wonder what that could mean. I had a letter from the wizard on day 8. I had other plans for the day, so I'd meet him another time. I watered my crops and headed to the carpenter's house, where I asked Robin to construct a silo for me. It might seem way too early to consider farm animals, but I would rather have the silo in place so I won't have to worry about it. In town, I purchased some parsnip seeds and planted them. I'm not trying to make a lot of money from these. They're more or less placeholders until the egg festival, where strawberry seeds will be available for purchase. The rest of my afternoon was spent fishing at the mountain lake, where I utilized several fish spawning spots. This continued well into the night. I was going to try to wait until reaching level 5 to sell my haul so I could make extra money. I reached level 4 fishing. Another letter was waiting for me on day 9. My dad sent me $500. I think he misses me as much as I miss him. My mixed spring seeds were ready, but I didn't harvest them. I'm using them as a placeholder for my future strawberries. I did have a parsnip ready, so I scooped it up. In town, Pierre posted a request asking for a Joja cola. Seriously? I dipped into the forest just long enough to grab some spring onions. I was going to need them. Today was a good luck day, and I was headed into the mines. There were some beasties, but nothing I couldn't handle. I collected a nice amount of copper and reached level 40 before returning home. I reached farming level 2. I woke up on day 10 to find my silo completed. I watered my crops and headed into town. I had the Joja Cola for Pierre's fetch quest, but forgotten his shop was closed on Wednesday. It was Vincent's birthday, and I gifted him a daffodil. I fished in town until I suspected I had reached level 5 fishing. I stopped in the cindersap forest for spring onions before meeting with the wizard. He gave me some forest juice that made me want to play hacky sack and made me feel in tune with the spirits of the woods, or something. I traveled to the mines and set up my furnaces. The rest of the day was spent grinding for iron ore and smelting bars. I returned to my farm very late and without shipping anything. I had just enough time before bed to craft a few basic sprinklers. I could work on their placement the next day. I reached fishing level 5 and chose the fisher profession. Fish are worth 25% more. I reached foraging level 3 and mining level 3. I had more mail on day 11. Robin had sent me a request to find her missing axe. I wasn't going into the cindersap forest, so it would have to wait. I cleaned up my farm a bit and added some more pathing. I never ever craft basic sprinklers, but I thought how nice it would be to not have to spend as much time watering my crops. I stopped at Pierre's to pick up 2 seeds, kale and blue jazz. I planted them, grabbed my furnaces, and returned to the mines. I followed the same plan as the day before, farmed for iron ore, smelt some bars, and so on. My luck was a little bit better today, and I made it down 5 floors before returning to floor 41 repeatedly. I killed my 10th slime and was admitted entrance to the Adventurers Guild, where I sold a pair of sneakers I had found. I left the mines a little earlier so I could return home and craft more basic sprinklers and set them up before bed. I reached level 4 mining. Day 12 was a different kind of day. Thanks to my sprinklers, I finished watering early. I had parsnips ready to harvest, but I left them alone. I'll be planting new seeds there tomorrow. I dropped by the cindersap forest for spring onions, and was so distracted by my favorite forageable that I forgot to pick up Robin's axe. Back at the farm, I cleaned up a bit. I scythed away grass to store in my silo and chopped down trees. I started another small area for crops. I crafted a few torches to set atop my sprinklers so it would be a bit easier to see in the darkness. I had a very busy morning on day 13. I harvested crops, watered, and mentally prepared myself for the egg festival. Once I arrived in town, I spent all of my money on strawberry seeds and purchased 60 of them. I talked to my neighbors and celebrated spring. It was time for the egg hunt. I won first place, and with it, the coveted straw hat. Once the festivities ended, I returned home, donned my hat, and felt like a real farmer for the first time since moving to the valley. I crafted and placed fertilizer before scattering strawberry seeds. I filled the extra spaces with mixed spring seeds. Thanks to my planning, I was in bed earlier than usual. I reached level 3 farming. I awoke to the soft pattering of raindrops on day 14. I tuned into the Queen of Sauce cooking show and learned how to make coleslaw. With no crops to water, I traveled to the beach, where although it was a neutral luck day, I found great fortune. I found a chest containing iridium and other goodies. I took a little break to sell some fish, and later fished up the book Jewels of the Sea. Upon reading it, I have a chance to find Roe in fishing chests. It was Haley's birthday, and I gifted her a daffodil. Back at the farm, I crafted a fishing chest. For some I'd be saving for cooking recipes in the far-off future. I headed to the mountains to mine for a bit when a carp frenzy started at the mountain lake. Talk about perfect timing. I fished for about 2 hours and caught 12 fish in 2 fish roe. I went into the mines for a little and didn't find any iron. I did find the leafy top, which I had to try on immediately. I stayed in the higher mine levels and farmed for copper and bugs to slay before I returned home. On day 15, I forgot to record my footage. So I'll tell you what happened. I crafted a recycling machine. I had parsnips ready to harvest, and I bought some potato seeds. It was salmonberry season, so I traveled to the cindersap forest where I gathered berries, spring onions, and Robin's lost axe. I returned Robin's axe and went to the beach, where I bought a trout soup and fiberglass rod from Willie. The fiberglass rod will allow me to use bait when fishing and will speed up the process greatly. I fished in town all afternoon and caught 3 catfish. That evening, I moved to the beach, where I fished up eel the rest of the night. I reached fishing level 6 and made around 3,900 gold from the fish I sold. My money was burning a hole in my pocket on day 16. After watering my crops, I asked Clint to crush open some geodes for me. I also ordered a pickaxe upgrade that would certainly help in the mines. I donated any new minerals to Gunther at the museum and utilized a fish spawning spot in town. I recalled a quest Willie had posted the day before, so I fished in the ocean for 4 sardines. I turned in the quest and headed to the forest, where I foraged for salmon berries before bed. I didn't feel very lucky on day 17 when I headed to the forest for salmon berries. To my surprise, I found the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And with some cash, a very lucky hat. I tried it on, and as cute as I looked, I thought it would be even cuter on coconut. My pickaxe was still in the shop, and I didn't have much to do but keep on earning money and raising my fishing skill. So I spent the rest of the day at the mountain lake where I fished until midnight. I reached level 7 fishing. I felt very motivated on day 18. I watered my crops and harvested cauliflower and a blue jazz flower. I stopped in Pierre's for some potato seeds, and Morris from Joja was handing out 50% off coupons. I know I'm supposed to feel bad for Pierre, but he's such a slime bucket that I couldn't help but laugh. It was Pam's birthday, and I gifted her a gold parsnip. At the blacksmith's, I picked up my copper pickaxe and had Clint upgrade my axe to copper and process a few geodes. It was a good luck day, and I wanted to try out my upgraded pickaxe, but there was a fish spawning spot on the way to the mines. I stopped and fished until the fish moved on. Right now, any extra money is going to help. I mined the rest of the evening. I was on the lookout for copper, geodes, and bugs. If I finish the monster eradication goal for bugs, I'll obtain the insect hand weapon. And right now, I'm still using the rinky-dink rusty sword Marlin gave me. I need an upgrade. I reached level 4 farming and level 2 combat. I had some mail waiting for me the morning of day 19. Pam had sent me a recipe for cheese cauliflower, and Jody had requested a cauliflower. I watered and harvested a few crops, one of which was a gold quality cauliflower I'm setting aside for the potluck ceremony at the beach luau this summer. I crafted my first preserve jar. I put in an ordinary cauliflower inside to pickle it. In town, I delivered the cauliflower to Jody, and I promised myself I wasn't going to think about cauliflower for the rest of the day. In the mines, I found a lot of copper and quite a few bugs. I found the wood club, which was already a step up from my rusty sword, but I wasn't willing to settle. I was here to bug bash, and I wasn't leaving until I obtained the insect head weapon. I fulfilled my goal and reported to Gil at the Adventurers Guild, and he gave me the weapon I so desired. For now, anyway. In my mining adventure, I had found a tie-dyed shirt, which I tried on. I'm ready to break out the hacky sack again. Do you think the wizard has any more of that forest juice left? Demetrius was waiting on my farmhouse porch on day 20. He wanted to observe local wildlife and offered to attract fruit bats or set up mushroom generators in my farm cave. I opted for mushrooms. Having access to a free dehydrator is going to be a nice perk. I picked up my copper axe from Clint and dropped off a salmonberry to Shane for his birthday. I stopped home to bust a few stumps. I spent the rest of the day in the mines. Now that I had an adequate weapon, I was flying through the floors. I picked up a glow ring and some thermal boots. At level 50, I found some combat boots that I equipped. I sold off my old equipment and continued down, reaching level 58. I reached level 4 foraging. And I reached level 5 mining. I chose the miner profession, plus 1 ore per vein. I also reached level 3 combat. I tuned into the Queen of Sauce on day 21 and learned how to make radish salad. My strawberries were ready to harvest. I had a feeling I'd be having a decent payday from the bounty of berries. I stopped in town to pick up potato seeds and headed into the mines. It was a good luck day, and I seemed to fly down the ladders. I found a cutlass I wasn't going to use, so I sold it, along with a pair of thermal boots. I picked up a bomb and coffee bean at some point. I put the explosives to good use on a massive group of iron. I left the mines, having reached floor 72 and with 115 pieces of iron ore. I reached level 5 farming and chose the tiller profession. I'll be selling crops for 10% more. On the morning of day 22, I had a letter from Linus teaching me how to make sashimi. The mushrooms in my cave were ready, and I dehydrated some salmon berries. I chopped down some trees and added tappers to each kind. I'll organize a tree farm sometime in the future. I went to Clint's and asked the blacksmith to upgrade my axe to steel. He processed some geodes for me, which I donated to the museum. I accepted the seeds Gunther offered as a reward. I planned on mining the rest of the day, but a fish spawning spot at the mountain lake lured me in. Once it disappeared, I entered the mines. I picked up a bone sword and cudgel. The bone sword is faster than the insect head. The cudgel is slow, but more powerful than both of them. I'll probably use the cudgel for power, but I'm not sure. I found a mushroom floor and gathered them up. I know I could get some foraging experience and some nice profit from them. I returned home with my pockets full of mushrooms. Kinda goes with the tie-dyed shirt, I guess. I had a letter from Mayor Lewis on day 23 informing me of the flower dance that was to take place the following day. After watering my crops, I headed to the mountains to mine when, once again, a fish spawning spot temporarily thwarted my plans. I moved on once the fish moved on. I really tried to get the cudgel to work for me, but it was far too slow. I was taking more damage than usual, and I went back to the bone sword. It might take more hits to finish off a beastie, but at least I could keep myself safe. I encountered an infested floor and was almost at floor 90 when I found myself surrounded by red slimes. It wasn't a waste, though. I reached level 4 combat and level 6 mining. Day 24 was the day of the flower dance. I watered my crops and headed for the cindersap forest. I bought a rare crow scarecrow and chatted with all of my neighbors. The eligible bachelors and bachelorettes did a special dance. The guys wore bow-legged blue prison jumpsuits, and the girls wore some serious midsummer cosplay, especially Haley. I didn't hate it. The festival ended and I checked my mushroom cave. I dehydrated some common mushrooms and went to bed. My strawberries were ready to harvest on day 25. This was going to be a great payday. I picked up my steel axe from Clint and had the blacksmith crush some geodes. I donated the new minerals and a dwarf scroll to the museum and was awarded a rare crow scarecrow. I headed to the forest, where I saw Jas and Vincent playing by the sewer. Jas was convinced she saw something moving around in there, and I think I saw it too. I foraged for spring onions and used my improved axe to demolish the large log that blocked the entrance to the secret woods. I busted some stumps and caught the woodskip fish. I returned home and spent the rest of the evening working to clean up my farm a bit. I reached level 6 farming and can now craft quality sprinklers. I just need to mine some more gold to craft them. I didn't have much to do around the farm on day 26 as the season was coming to an end. It was my buddy Pierre's birthday and I brought him a daffodil. Before I could give it to him, he was boo-hooing about Joja. You know, this always seems to happen. I completely forget that I'm going to sign up for a Joja membership, and then my good friend reminds me, "Happy birthday, big guy!" I bought the membership, and starting tomorrow, I can start paying to unlock things to make my life easier. I mean, enrich the community. Back at the farm, I crafted a few more furnaces and was off to the mines. I needed more gold ore, and I might as well progress a little further in the mines doing it. I left with 70 pieces of gold. Just about all of these were going to be turned into sprinklers for my summer crops. I awoke to potatoes ready to harvest on day 27. I had smelted enough gold bars to craft 9 sprinklers. A few more days of smelting and mining, and I'd have enough for my entire farm. I crafted an additional preserve jar and started processing some of my potatoes. I headed into the cindersap forest for a wee bit of foraging and stopped at a fish spawning spot. I visited Emily and gifted her a topaz for her birthday. I traveled to the mountains and stopped at Robin's, where I picked up the stone floor recipe and a calendar. Then it was off to the mines. I accomplished one of my goals for the season, to reach level 100 and obtain the star drop to permanently increase my maximum energy. I mined the rest of the evening and returned home with 51 pieces of gold ore. I reached level 7 mining. It was a rainy day 28. I tuned into the Queen of Sauce and learned how to make an omelet. I had a letter from Emily. She taught me how to make a salad. Gus sent me some bean hot pot in the mail, and I thought that was really nice. I crafted some stone flooring and organized a smelting station of sorts. This will most likely be changed around in the future, but for now, I have a designated area where I don't have to worry about debris spawning. I visited Robin and asked the carpenter to construct a chicken coop. I'm not going to be purchasing poultry immediately. This is another case of me attempting to plan ahead while I have some money and resources available. And Robin isn't jazzercising or whatever it is she does on Tuesdays. It was mine time. Sure, I could have dedicated the entire season to fishing and possibly caught the legendary fish aptly named the Legend today. But I didn't want to. I obtained a pair of space boots that increased my defense and immunity. I made it to floor 117 before returning home. I reached level 5 foraging and picked the forester profession. Trees drop 25% more wood. I reached level 5 combat. All attacks deal 10% more damage. The air was muggy and the sun was sunny on day 1. My crop area required very little cleanup, mostly just the removal of weeds, a little hoeing and watering. I added a row of pathing and was off to town to purchase seeds. I bought a little bit of everything, but mostly blueberries. I had collected some mixed seeds in the mines and put those down as well. When in town, I picked up a slime slaying request. Before heading into the mines, I did a little fishing and caught the sturgeon. Robin will build me a fish pond where I can keep it to farm roe that I can process into caviar. I sold some of my old gear to the Adventurers Guild and entered the mines. I slayed the slimes and would have to turn in the request the following day. While I was there, I reached the bottom of the mines where the skull key was waiting for me. I won't be able to utilize it until I unlock the bus to the Calico Desert, but it was something I could check off my list. I returned home and chopped down some trees on my farm before heading to bed. On day 2, I rushed to the mines first thing because I left my fishing rod in my mining chest. I fished a little at a spawning spot and headed into town. I turned in the slime slaying request to Mayor Lewis and did a little ocean fishing at the beach. I fished up the red mullet, tilapia, and tuna before returning home. I had some extra seeds to plant, so I crafted more sprinklers and rearranged my scarecrows. In town, I had picked up another monster slaying request, this time for a squid kid. I finished that fairly quickly. I'll turn it in tomorrow. I spent the rest of the evening farming for iron as my supply was dwindling. There was an earthquake during the night. I had a letter from Mayor Lewis on day 3. It seems he had lost his lucky purple shorts. I wonder where those could be. I couldn't fetch them now, but I knew where to find them when I could. I had some maple syrup ready from my tapper and crafted my first bee house. I headed to the secret woods to bust some stumps, forage, and slay some slimes. I was off to the wizard's tower, where I turned in the squid kid slaying quest. He gave me a prize token I could redeem at a later date. I fished up a rainbow trout before visiting Marnie. I saw Mayor Lewis there, and I'm not sure why he didn't just ask her where his shorts were. Oh well. I purchased a heater for my coop and 2 chickens. I named them Spicy and Crispy. I crafted a stone fence and played around with the placement of it. I cut down many trees, so many that I had enough wood to easily repair the beach bridge near the tide pools. I scooped up some new forage and found some artifacts I could donate to the museum. A muggy thunderstorm had rolled into the valley overnight on day 4. I said good morning to my chickens and was off to the mines. The wizard had requested another squid kid be slayed, so I did. I stopped by Marnie's and gave Jess a sweet pea for her birthday. I turned in the quest to the wizard and made my way into town. I fished a bit and exchanged the prize token for some mixed seeds. Clint opened some geodes and mystery boxes for me, and I donated goodies to the museum. I picked up a fetch quest for Robin, who wanted some wood. I turned that in and was off to the beach for some evening fishing. It paid off, and I reached fishing level 8. It was still raining on the morning of day 5. Mayor Lewis sent me a 500 gold prize for earning the Best Neighbor Award for all of those monster slaying and fetch quests. I stopped by Robin's and picked up the recipe for the big chest. My home inventory was getting a little cramped, and it didn't make sense for me to keep crafting little chests when I needed more storage. I headed to the beach and did some fishing in the ocean. I caught a red snapper and a flounder I would need for a cooking recipe. I had picked up a fetch quest for Clint. The blacksmith wanted 15 iron ore. I wasn't planning on mining today, but I needed more materials. After obtaining the iron, I moved up to the higher floors and mined for copper. Later that evening, I found the Monster Compendium, and upon reading it, monsters have a small chance to drop double loot. I returned to my farm and crafted my first big chest. I spent a little time reorganizing things before barely making it to bed. I reached level 8 mining. The sun was shining on day 6, and my hot peppers and wheat were ready to harvest. Spicy and crispy chickens had matured and produced their first small eggs. I headed to Joja Mart to pick up 48 hot pepper seeds. I planned on expanding my crop area, and hot peppers are one of my very favorite crops because they have multiple harvests and a relatively quick growing time. I headed to Clint's and turned in the iron ore fetch quest. While I was there, the blacksmith broke open some geodes and mystery boxes. Robin had another fetch quest for wood, and I turned that in. I was just getting ready to start my new crop area when there was a sturgeon frenzy at the mountain lake. I caught half a dozen and returned home to plant my hot peppers. Once I was finished, I worked on clearing more of my farm. I reached foraging level 6. I awoke on day 7 feeling fantastic. It all started when I learned how to make baked fish from the Queen of Sauce. I had some wild honey ready and some radishes to harvest. I had a lot of crafting to do. I made 2 mayo makers since my little chicks were all grown up and producing eggs. I made a crab pot that I set up in the little watering hole. This will most likely just catch crawfish, snails, and periwinkles, but what I'm really looking forward to is the trash. I won't have the need to create refined quartz, as this little crab pot will provide me with broken glasses and CDs that I can process in the recycling machine. I crafted a ton of lightning rods. I replaced a good chunk of my stone fence with these, as they will never deteriorate. Fences need replaced, but lightning rods don't. I also crafted a worm bin I placed next to my crab pot to make it easier to fill with bait. Having used up too many resources to count, I needed to mine today. A fish spawning spot at the mountain lake reeled me in, and I felt so drawn to it I just had to fish, at least until it disappeared. Not long after I started, I obtained a treasure chest. It contained, among other things, the ancient seed. The ancient seed can be donated to the museum to obtain a plantable ancient seed, which, after cultivated, will produce ancient fruit, which can be processed into ancient fruit wine, which will make me money. Lots and lots of money. I also fished up the bone flute and rare disc. On my way to donate these goodies to Gunther, I hoed up a prehistoric rib. What was going on with all the artifacts today? I donated them and picked up my plantable ancient seed. I returned home and set a little place aside for it. I had a burglar shank to sell to the Adventurers Guild when I found another diggy spot. And what did it produce? A prehistoric skull. I couldn't believe how many artifacts I found in one day. This had to be some kind of record. I mined for iron and farmed dust sprites for coal the rest of the evening. When I returned, I crafted a few more lightning rods before bed. I had some trash in my crab pot on day 8. This was great, as this broken CD could be transformed into refined quartz. I harvested my poppies and planted hot peppers in their place. After checking in on my chickens, I was off to town. I gave Gus a diamond for his birthday and had Clint break open some mystery boxes for me. I delivered the prehistoric skull to the museum and returned home. I put some deluxe speed grow from one of the mystery boxes on my ancient seed to help accelerate its growth rate, and grabbed a cave carrot from a chest. Robin had requested one, and I delivered it before heading into the mines. I needed copper for tappers and iron for, well, everything. I reached farming level 7. On day 9, I had some crops ready to harvest. Wheat, summer spangle flowers, and more hot peppers. I had a letter from Gus, and he had sent me the salmon dinner recipe. That morning, I started working on a tree farm. I would need a pickaxe upgrade to remove the large boulders at the bottom of my farm, but for now, I planted mahogany and oak seeds. I crafted tappers for them that I put on nearby trees for now. I stopped by Willie's that afternoon and bought some trout soup, an iridium rod, and a trap bobber. I fished in the ocean and decided to try for my first legendary fish, the crimson fish. I only just barely managed to catch it on my first try. I've only ever attempted to catch legendary fish once I hit level 10 fishing, but I'm glad I tried something different. My gamble paid off. I decided that was enough excitement for one day. I returned home and worked on cleaning up my farm for the rest of the evening. My farm was getting overgrown no matter how much I tried to clear it on day 10. I cleared a bit of trees creeping around my lightning rods, and I'm not sure if a rock spawned on one of the lightning rods, or I had not crafted a lightning rod for that spot, but I didn't want it to happen again. I put some stone pathing around the perimeter of the fence and moved my mayo makers. I traveled to Robin's, where I brought Maru a gold bar for her birthday. While I was there, I ordered a shipping bin from Robin that I can keep near my future greenhouse. I stopped at Clint's and ordered an upgrade from the blacksmith to turn my copper pickaxe into steel so I can break apart those pesky boulders. I stopped at Joja Mart and picked up some melon seeds. I returned home and harvested some summer spangle flowers and sunflowers. I planted my new melon seeds in their stead. I went back to the mountains and started clearing the branches and weeds away from the train station. From there, I went to the mines, where I fished for the rest of the evening. I caught the stonefish and ghostfish. I had wheat, radishes, and hot peppers ready to harvest on day 11. I'm not going to sell all of the regular quality hot peppers. I'm going to dehydrate them to sell them for a little more money. I chopped down some trees while I waited for the luau to start down at the beach. The whole town showed up for the shindig. I spoke to all my neighbors and added my gold star cauliflower to the hot tub masquerading as a soup cauldron. Mayor Lewis announced it was time for the potluck ceremony, and my cauliflower must have made all the difference because the governor himself raved about the tasty soup. The ceremony ended, and back on my farm I chopped down trees until it was time for bed. On day 12, I had a letter from my good friend Pierre, who gave me the blueberry tart recipe. Shane sent me a recipe for pepper poppers. Speaking of peppers, I had some ready to harvest, along with tomatoes and hops. Hops are an awesome crop because once they mature, you can harvest from them every day, and you can use them to brew pale ale. I used some maple syrup to craft another bee house. The bookseller was in town, and I had fished up an extra copy of Jewels of the Sea, so I exchanged it for 3 river jelly. While I was over there, I found a prize token behind the bookseller's balloon. My upgraded pickaxe was ready for pickup, and I had Clint smash some geodes and open some mystery boxes. The boxes yielded a variety of goods, including a warp totem, bombs, and a quality sprinkler. I delivered a quartz that Penny requested, and between the museum and blacksmith, I found the Alleyway Buffet book, and upon reading it, I have a greater chance to find items in the trash. I spent the rest of the day fishing at the beach until I ran out of bait. I returned home and used my improved pickaxe to blast the boulders at the bottom of my farm and added some more stone pathing to the beginnings of my tree farm. I awoke to the boom of thunder and sprinkling raindrops on day 13. It was a thunderstorm, which meant I'd be acquiring battery packs from my lightning rods tomorrow. My melons were finally ready to harvest along with peppers and more hops. I saved one of the eggs from my chickens and went into town. I had acquired 2 prize tokens that I exchanged for Stardrop tea and a blue striped bed. It was Alex's birthday, and I gifted him the egg I had saved. He had posted a request for seaweed, so I turned that in. There were a lot of forageables at the beach, so I scooped them up and sold them to Willie before purchasing some bait and trout soups. The rest of the day and evening was spent in the secret woods. I busted the stumps, slayed the slimes, and fished. I was specifically farming catfish. There are other places to catch them, but I've always enjoyed the solitude of the forest. I was thinking about heading home for the night when a fish spawning spot appeared directly in front of me. I utilized it and fished up 2 wall plants I'll hang in my farmhouse once I have some room. I did not sell any of my fish because I was cutting it close returning home. I reached level 9 fishing. The skies had cleared on day 14. I tuned into the Queen of Sauce and learned how to make pancakes. My fields were a blend of blues and reds as my blueberries and hot peppers were ready to harvest. It was going to be a big payday. I saved about half of my regular quality blueberries to process in preserve jars and maybe add some to my future greenhouse. I still had some strawberries squirreled away for the same purpose. I stopped at Robin's, and Demetrius and Mara were working in the lab. When Mara went to get some soil samples, Demetrius started dropping not-so-subtle hints that he didn't want anyone distracting Maru from her great potential. Maru came back and asked what we were talking about, and I covered for my future father-in-law. See, I was planning on romancing Maru anyway, but after he suggested that I would be interfering with her bright future, you better believe I'm setting my cap at her. I fished in the mountain lake for a largemouth bass Emily had requested. I delivered it and headed to the cindersap forest. I bought a rare seed from the traveling cart lady. It was pricey, but it was an investment for my future. In the secret woods, I busted stumps and slayed slimes, then moseyed around the forest, cutting down a few trees here and there and picking up forage as I found it. When I returned to the farm, I cut down a few more trees before heading to bed. I reached farming level 8. There was a strange weather forecast on day 15, an anomalous weather reading. I wonder what that means. Hot peppers, blueberries, and corn were ready to harvest. I had some oak resin ready, and I used it to craft my first of many, many kegs. I put a hop inside to create pale ale. Pam had sent me a request for one a day or so ago, and I'd be able to fulfill it once the hop had processed. I worked on clearing the farm. If the weather tomorrow was a special rain, that meant trees on my farm would grow at an accelerated rate, and I wanted to have some space for them to spread. That afternoon, I fulfilled a fetch quest for Shane and brought him a frozen tear. He gave me a prize token, which I redeemed for 4 preserve jars. Wowza! I had been collecting a great amount of fish roe in treasure chests, so I had plenty of goodies to process. That evening, I ran into Maru and gave her a quartz. Later, Linus invited me to hang out around the fire pit. He said he was glad we were friends. Then he invited me into his tent, and things got weird. He made a special kind of wild bait, whatever that means. He gave me a recipe, and now I can craft it on my own. At the mountain lake, a fish spawning spot appeared, and I utilized it until it was time to return home. I wanted to be well rested for whatever anomalous weather event would greet me with the dawn. I reached foraging level 7. On day 16, a green rain had descended upon the valley. I tuned into my favorite show, Green Static, and headed outside. Gus sent a letter inviting everyone to the saloon to wait out the storm. But I had other plans. I crafted some mixed summer seeds and planted them in place of the poppies I harvested. I worked on cleaning up the farm for a bit and crafted 2 more kegs. I started processing juice and wine. These weren't going to be crafted for a big payday, rather just to ensure that I shipped them as part of completion. I wandered into town and picked up a fetch quest for Maru, who wanted a quartz. I guess she forgot about the quartz I gave her the day before, but no matter, I was happy to see her. I headed to the mountains and stopped to chop down a swirly fiddlehead fern tree. After dropping off the quartz, I headed to the cindersap forest where I scythed away weeds, obtaining moss, fiber, mixed seeds, and mixed flower seeds. I chopped down a few trees here and there. This continued into the night. Before heading to bed, my first pale ale was ready, so I started processing a jar of honey in the keg to craft mead. The weather was back to normal on day 17, and with it, a good luck fortune. That was great news, because I was in dire need of minerals. I was almost out of copper and iron, and I needed both of those to craft the kegs I'll need. I had a lot to harvest: flowers, summer squash, hot peppers, and more. The mead was finished processing, so I popped some wheat into the keg to craft beer. It was Sam's birthday, but I completely forgot, so no present for him this year. To be fair, once I get to the desert, I can pick up some cactus fruit to give him, and we will be very good pals. I was off to the mines, first for copper, then for iron. I found ladders easily, picked up a fair amount of ore and gems. I picked up an iron-edged sword that I wasn't going to need, so I sold that before rushing back home. Tomorrow was going to be a great day. I reached combat level 6. It was a muggy, rainy mess on day 18. But I couldn't let a little rain stop me. I had hot peppers and blueberries to harvest. Once I finished my farm chores, I had business in town. I delivered an amethyst to Mayor Lewis, and Jord had requested some wheat, and he gave me a prize token. I redeemed it for an apple sapling. I stopped by Willie's for some trout soup and was off to Joja Mart. I had finally saved up enough money for my greenhouse, and while I haven't unlocked the seed maker yet, today was the day I unlocked that community upgrade. I could always plant other things in the greenhouse until then, including my peach and apple saplings. I stopped by Marnie's and picked up Mayor Lewis's purple shorts, with gloves or tongs or something. I wouldn't touch those with my bare hands. I returned home and crafted a trap bobber for fishing and upgraded my worm bin so it will create deluxe fishing bait. I fished in the secret woods for the remainder of the night. I spent nearly all of my money today, and I'd need to earn it back. That night, my greenhouse was repaired. The rain continued throughout the night into day 19. Hot peppers, blueberries, corn, and summer squash were ready to harvest. Mayor Lewis sent me the recipe for spaghetti. I took some time to remove the temporary tappers and move them to my fully grown oak trees. I'm glad I started my tree farm before the green rain, because now most of them had fully matured. You see, during the green rain, every tree sapling of stage 1, that's the seed stage, has a 50% chance to grow to stage 4, nearly matured. So if you're ever wanting to start a tree farm, it's always better to start it in the spring or early summer so you can take advantage of the green rain growth spurt. My greenhouse was repaired, and I had found a decorative lantern in the mines, so I set it up so I'd have some light in the evenings. I planted my peach and apple saplings. I would get started planting crops another day. It was Demetrius's birthday, so I headed to the mountains and gave him a gold quality strawberry. I had been saving a second gold quality strawberry for Maru, and I gave it to her. Caroline had posted a request for refined quartz, and I delivered it. While I was at Pierre's, the stingy shopkeeper was boo-hooing and bemoaning his inevitable bankruptcy. I decided to toss some coins his way and picked up the backpack upgrade. I spent the rest of the afternoon chatting with my neighbors. That evening, I reeled in catfish in the secret woods. I reached level 9 farming and learned how to craft the seed maker. I can get started planting in my greenhouse. I woke up to a thunderstorm on day 20. This might be the rainiest summer ever. I had a lot of mail. Demetrius sent me a recipe for fried mushroom. My dad sent me some stone. George sent me some stone. And Demetrius requested a melon. I had hot peppers, tomatoes, and summer squash ready to harvest. I crafted a pair of seed makers and started turning some strawberries into seeds. I participated in the trout derby in the cindersap forest. I caught the dorado, a fish I hadn't yet encountered. I fished all day, finding artifacts, roe, and other goodies in treasure chests. I stored my fish away to sell the following day and returned to the derby, where I exchanged my trout tokens for prizes. Once home, I started planting a bit in my greenhouse. I used some speed grow on my rare seed and strawberries. I reached fishing level 10 and chose the angler profession. Fish are worth 50% more. The skies cleared on day 21. I tuned into the Queen of Sauce and learned how to make the maki roll. Granny Evelyn was on my porch that morning and gave me a garden pot. She also gave me the recipe so I can create more. I had hot peppers ready to harvest and a silly amount of battery packs ready from my lightning rods. I traveled to Clint's, where the blacksmith opened geodes and mystery boxes for me. I donated several artifacts and minerals to the museum. I went to say hi to Maru and requested a house upgrade from Robin. I would like to start cooking sooner than later, and for that, I would need a kitchen. I brought Alex a grape he requested. Then I was off to the mines. I had used up so much iron and coal crafting, lightning rods, sprinklers, kegs, bee houses, all of it, and I don't want to rely on buying materials from the blacksmith. I love mining, and it was a great opportunity to work on the monster eradication goals. I came across an infested floor, and while I didn't find any iron on it, I found many beasties to slay. I hoed up some of the dirt and found the last dwarf scroll I would need to obtain the Dwarfish Translation Guide. Once I have it, I will be able to make friends with the dwarf who lives in the entrance to the mines and purchase explosives from him. Gunther was waiting for me outside of my farmhouse on day 22. He thanked me for the mineral and artifact donations and gave me the rusty key. I'll have to check it out later. I finished my farm tours and headed into town, where I visited Caroline's tea room. We shared a cup of green tea, and she gave me some tea leaves. It's funny, it kind of reminds me of that forest juice the wizard gave me. I donated the last dwarf scroll to the museum and accepted the dwarfish translation guide and a rare crow scarecrow. I delivered the melon to Demetrius, finishing another fetch quest. I unlocked the sewer with the rusty key from Gunther and met Krobus, the merchant of rare and exotic goods. He was adorable, and I gave him a gold star horseradish. I headed to the mines. On the way, I saw Morrow, and I gave her some quartz. Penny was with her, and I gave her a poppy. I don't know what was going on with Abigail up at the mountain lake, but she was rushing around, and I admit I laughed. Real talk, it's possible the green rain spawned a tree that interfered with her pathing, and when villagers are stuck, like if you block their path, they speed up. Or maybe a bee was chasing her, I don't know. I bought the dwarfish safety manual from the dwarf. Bombs now deal 25% less damage. I also picked up the rare crow scarecrow and recipe for the weathered floor. I did some mining and picked up a fair amount of copper and iron ore. Later, I gave the dwarf an amethyst. It just so happened to be his birthday. I didn't know this, as his birthday does not show up on the calendar unless you've met him. It's the same for Krobus and Sandy at Calico Desert. It was just a happy coincidence it happened to be his special day. I had some letters from Caroline waiting for me on day 23. Mrs. Pierre sent me the crafting recipe for tea saplings, so I can cultivate green tea leaves. She also sent me the cooking recipe for parsnip soup. I stopped by her tea room and snagged a free tea leaf to process in my kegs to make some tea. I'll ship it as part of the shipped goods collection. I startled Maru at work, and she dropped a sample. I encouraged her to tell Dr. Harvey the truth, and he was fine with it. I'm not going to be a jerk and get all jealous about it. He's a good guy, but he isn't competition. It was a good luck day, so the rest of the afternoon and evening were spent mining iron. I returned home with 74 pieces of ore. On day 25, I had some summer forage, tomatoes, hot peppers, and melons to harvest. I said good morning to my chickens and was off to the beach. It was Willie's birthday, and I gifted the fisherman he had posted a request to catch 3 tuna, and while that would be easy enough, I still needed to catch the octopus and pufferfish. I had crafted some trap bobbers and chowed down on a trout soup. I fished up both fish and the tuna in the early afternoon. I turned in the request to Willie, who rewarded my efforts with a prize token. But I wasn't done there. I stopped in the sewers and fished up the mutant carp, another legendary fish. I traded in my prize token for the book, Friendship 101. I'll now become friends with everyone faster. I dropped some things off at home and headed to floor 100 of the mines. I fished up the lava eel and some cave jelly. I spent the rest of the evening on floor 60 trying to lure out the ice pip, but the frosty fish refused to show itself. I'll have to try another day. I awoke on day 25 in a slightly larger house. Now I can cook. I had some mail waiting for me. Willie had sent me a recipe for chowder, and George had sent me a request for a hot pepper. I cleaned up a few trees when a book fell from the branches. Woody's Secret. Upon reading it, felled trees have a 5% chance to yield double the wood. I finished up my farm chores and delivered the hot pepper to George. I stopped by Robin's and ordered a fish pond. I will probably be ordering a few of these in the future, but for now I really wanted to get my sturgeon pond going for some caviar. I spent the rest of the day mining for copper and iron ore to produce kegs. Kegs are the most obvious path to great riches, and for perfection, I was going to need an awful lot of money. It was a dark and stormy day 26. I had a letter from George with a recipe instructing how to make fried eel. I had hot peppers, blueberries, summer squash, and wheat ready to harvest. I did not harvest the wheat, as it is also a fall crop and will act as a placeholder until then. If I harvest it now, I'll have empty spots in my field that could potentially fill with weeds, stones, or branches when the season changes. I had more oak resin ready, so I crafted more kegs and filled them with hops. I stopped by the sewers and purchased an iridium sprinkler from Krobus. He sells them every Friday, and I'll make a point to try to buy one each week. I could craft my own, but if I have the money, I'll buy them. It was a good luck day, so I was heading to the mines. On the way, I dropped off a gold bar for Maru, because I like her. I had specific goals to work on in the mines: monster eradication, iron, and coal. I wanted to focus on floors 40 to 75. On floor 51, I found an infested floor which didn't provide any iron but provided monsters to slay, specifically dust sprites that drop coal. It paid off, and I reached level 7 combat. My fish pond was ready on day 27. I placed a sturgeon inside, and soon I'll have some roe that I can process into caviar. I harvested hot peppers, corn, and blueberries. I had a silly amount of battery packs again, but I was happy to gather them. My first strawberries were ready to harvest in my greenhouse. I plan to fill the greenhouse with crops by the end of fall, but for now, I cleared some space for more outdoor crops. I set up sprinklers and crafted more bee houses. I traveled to Robin's and ordered a barn. I didn't want my chickens to get lonely, and I would need milk and cheese for several cooking recipes. I spent the rest of the evening chopping down trees in the mountains and clearing stone at the train station. On my way home, Maru stopped me. She was looking through her telescope and invited me to look at the stars with her. She started to get kinda deep and changed the subject. I enjoyed our time together. I returned home with much on my mind. I reached level 10 farming and chose the artisan profession. Artisan goods sell for 40% more. I tuned into the Queen of Sauce on day 28 and learned how to make bread. Marnie sent me a letter informing me she had the auto petter in stock. I plan to purchase at least one by the end of the fall. Shane sent me a plate of pepper poppers. Demetrius wrote to inform me of the Dance of the Moonlight Jellies event taking place at the beach. The air felt cooler as I harvested my peppers and tomatoes. Fall had nearly descended on the valley, but I didn't feel ready for summer to end. There would be an overwhelming amount of new crops to plant in my field starting tomorrow. I wanted to bust some stumps in the secret woods. On my way, I stopped by the traveling cart lady and purchased another rare seed. I would need one to obtain a star drop, and the other was for shipping as part of the collection. I was still missing a fish, the goby, which can be found year-round in the waterfall. I caught it and spent the rest of the afternoon adding another section to my tree farm. I crafted more sprinklers and created more strawberry seeds for my greenhouse. My ancient fruit would be ready to harvest soon, and I planned to fill up my greenhouse with them. Until then, strawberries would be a great way to earn some money. It was time for the Dance of the Moonlight Jellies. I talked to my neighbors and purchased a pretty banner to celebrate my first summer in the valley. It was time for the jellies to arrive. I reached foraging level 8. On day 1, the last memory of summer had faded, and fall had arrived in the valley. My farm required minimal cleanup, and my first ancient fruit was ready to harvest. I processed it in the seed maker. I spent nearly all my money on a variety of seeds. Most of them I planted today, and the rest to replace some after they were harvested. A lot of them were cranberry seeds. The rest of the afternoon was spent crafting fertilizer and planting. I planted the ancient fruit seeds, the rare seed, and my strawberry seeds in the greenhouse. I added speed grow to the rare seed and the ancient fruit seeds. It was already late when I arrived at the mountain lake to fish. A spawning spot appeared, and I caught one of several midnight carp. I finished up my farm chores early on day 2 and went into town. There, Mayor Lewis and Robin were putting up a special order board. I will be accepting many of these requests, as upon completion you can obtain crafting recipes. Part of achieving perfection is crafting everything. I accepted a request of Robin's asking for 80 pieces of hardwood. I don't care about the reward in this case. Robin ends up selling a hardwood bed. I do care about working to level up my foraging skill, and chopping hardwood is a step in the right direction. I gave Penny a poppy for her birthday. I had Clint crush some geodes and mystery boxes for me. One of the mystery boxes contained an apple sapling I would plant in my greenhouse. I spent the rest of the day fishing. In the ocean, I caught a sea cucumber, and in the river, salmon and tiger trout. That evening in town, I caught the angler, a legendary fish. I caught an albacore in the ocean. I put up a mystery box themed wallpaper before bed. Gus was waiting on my farmhouse porch on day 3. He thought of me as a good friend and gave me a mini jukebox. He also gave me the crafting recipe to make more. Willie sent me a recipe for escargot, and Marnie requested an amaranth. The sturgeon in my fish pond requested a diamond, and I gave them one. The strawberries in my greenhouse were ready to harvest. I sold the silver and gold quality and turned the regular quality into seeds, which I replanted. I visited the secret woods to work on Robin's hardwood special order. I slayed slimes and busted stumps. While there, I utilized a fish spawning spot. I fished for a bit in the mountains and mined for iron the rest of the evening. I reached level 9 mining. I finished my farm chores early on day 4 and headed into town. I spoke to Maru, and our relationship as friends was maxed out, so I took the next step. I bought a bouquet from my best bud Pierre and offered it to Maru. She said she'd break the news to her dad. Now, I just thought this was a throwaway line, but I would learn later that she would indeed tell Demetrius. I dropped off my pickaxe to Clint for a gold upgrade. I chopped down some trees in the cindersap forest and traveled to the secret woods to work on Robin's hardwood quest. I found some blueberries in one of my chests and sold them. I'm not sure why I had been holding on to so many of them. I'm guessing for preserve jars, but I don't need 100 of them just sitting there. I visited Maru that evening, and in her room she showed me one of her inventions. That killed me. No, not really. It just burned a little. I could tell she already felt terrible, so I played it off like it wasn't a big deal. I ran into Demetrius on my way out, and he is such a jerk. It seems that he thinks Maru is too good for me. Maybe I'll prove him wrong? Get out of here with that. I was good enough to conduct your dumb cave experiment, and I was good enough to bring you a melon, and next year I'll be good enough to bring you a pufferfish when you ask for it, so I don't want to hear it. At least Robin's cool. I spent the rest of the evening trying to catch an ice pip on floor 60 of the mines. Instead, I left with a pocket full of ghost fish and intense hatred from my future father-in-law. I had some bok choy ready to harvest on day 5. I planted more in their stead. Dum-Dum Pierre forgot that I had purchased a bouquet off of him the day before and sent me a letter explaining how courting works in Pelican Town. I filled Coconut's water bowl and felt her love for me. I visited Maru, and she confessed she was having a hard time focusing on her work. She is adorable. While I was there, I ordered a fish pond from Robin. I want to start farming lava eel for several reasons. The roe is worth a fair amount of money, and they sometimes give you gold ore, magma geodes, and the spicy eel dish. It was Elliot's birthday, and I didn't have any of his expensive gift tastes, so he got a summer squash. He didn't seem to mind. While I was refilling my crab pot, an anchovy frenzy spawned right in front of me. I utilized it until the fishies moved on and sold my haul to Willie. I purchased an iridium sprinkler from Krobus and spent the rest of the afternoon in town chatting with my neighbors. I ran into Penny in the cindersap forest, and she told me that she heard about Maru and me. I thought that was super cute. I slayed slimes and busted stumps in the secret woods. When I returned home, I noticed my hardwood trees had matured, and I cut down a few. I had finished Robin's quest. I just needed to drop off the wood the next day. I had mead and fish roe ready, and I refilled the preserve jars and kegs with some of the blueberries I saved. Buying seeds and paying for my pickaxe upgrade had drained my wallet, but I was hopeful that I'd be having a nice payday soon. The air was cool as a breeze tore through the valley on day 6. Jody had sent me a letter with a recipe for fried calamari. I had eggplant ready to harvest, and fortunately, they won't require replanting. After checking on my chickens, I went to Clint's to pick up my new and improved pickaxe. I utilized a fish spawning spot at the mountain lake before turning in the hardwood for Robin's special order. I obtained 2,000 gold. I spent the rest of the day in the mines working on slaying slimes and dust sprites. I obtained a fair amount of iron ore and coal for my trouble. I tuned into the Queen of Sauce on day 7 and learned how to make tortillas. My fish pond was ready, and I added a lava eel. I had corn ready to harvest outside and some strawberries inside the greenhouse. I crafted more kegs and processed honey and strawberries. In town, I redeemed a prize token for 12 bombs. I was holding on to these for my trips to the Skull Cavern in the desert. Right now, I was attempting to save up enough money to unlock the bus repair by the 14th day of fall. I'm sure that seems like a silly plan, but I'd like to get there before Sandy's birthday, so I can give her a gift that day and get a jump start to our relationship. Plus, I love mining and the danger that awaits me in those mines. I fished in the ocean most of the afternoon, sold my haul to Willie, purchased some trout soup and more bait, and utilized another ocean fishing spot. I returned home and crafted some wild fall seeds. I traveled to the mountains to possibly fish for the ice pip when a spawning spot appeared. I utilized that until it disappeared. I crafted and planted more wild fall seeds before turning in for the night. I had a letter from Linus on day 8. It was blackberry season, and his basket was missing. I knew where it was, but I won't spoil it for you if you haven't found it yourself. I had ancient fruit, cranberries, and amaranth ready to harvest. I processed the ancient fruit into seeds and planted them in my greenhouse with some speed grow. I had my first batch of lava eel roe. This was going to be a great way to make some money with minimal effort. In town, I delivered some amaranth to Marnie. I picked up a special order from Clint, Cave Patrol, slay 50 dust sprites. This could not be better. I was about 150 slays away from completing the monster eradication goal for them, so this would help me get to 500. I traveled all over the valley, harvesting every blackberry I could find, focusing on the cindersap forest and secret woods. I don't really care about the blackberries. I care about the foraging skill points I'm earning with the shake of each bush. I returned Linus's basket and headed into the mines to start slaying dust sprites. It was a good luck day, and the dust sprites were everywhere. I didn't have much time in the mines, but I made a nice dent in the quest. There was a windstorm during the night. Marnie was on my farmhouse porch on day 9. She wanted me to deliver a cave carrot to her shop. That wouldn't be a problem, as I had one stored away for this very fetch quest. She had also sent me a letter with a pale broth recipe. Mayor Lewis had also sent me a letter informing me of the upcoming Stardew Valley fair. I had to prepare a grange display, and I had been setting a few things aside, so I wasn't terribly worried. I had bok choy, broccoli, and artichoke ready to harvest. Artichoke seeds are typically not available in year 1, but sometimes, if you're lucky, you'll get some from mixed seeds. I had strawberries ready in my greenhouse. Eventually, I will get all of them on a schedule, so I won't have to check for them every day. I had more lava eel roe, and I created more preserve jars to process it. Once finished around the farm, I traveled to the cindersap forest with 100 pieces of hardwood to repair the stump. I foraged for blackberries and headed to Marnie's to drop off the cave carrot. I had enough money to unlock the bus to Calico Desert, so I was off to Joja Mart. The bus will be fixed overnight, and tomorrow I can take a trip. I spent the rest of the evening in the mines and slayed 37 of the 50 dust sprites required to complete Clint's quest. Morris and the Joja boys fixed up the bus. I didn't have much to do around the farm on day 10. I was going to the desert, so I crafted a chest and packed my jade, rubies, and some quartz for the desert trader. I had some time before Pam would be ready to drive the bus, so I went to Joja Mart, where I unlocked the mine carts. It would make traveling around town much easier. I took the bus to the desert and met Sandy, proprietor of the Oasis. I bought some beet seeds from her. I would need them for cooking and a quest to get a rare crow scarecrow. I exchanged my rubies for spicy eel and quartz for bombs. I wouldn't be able to exchange my jade for staircases until Friday. I tried my skull key in the door, and it opened. On my way to Joja Mart earlier, I had picked up a request to slay red slimes. The purple slimes I encountered also counted toward this goal. I'm assuming because they are even more difficult to slay. I plan to finish the quest in the regular mines the following day. Although it was a good luck day, I didn't come across anything spectacular in the mines. I picked up some iridium ore from slime slaying, but it was just an okay dive. I reached level 32 before returning home. I planted my beet seeds and tried on the tunneler's jersey I found. It was okay, but I prefer my tie-dye for now. The mine carts were fixed overnight. On day 11, I had a letter from Mr. Key, who challenged me to make it to level 25 of the Skull Cavern and promised a mountain of cash if I succeeded. I had eggplant, yams, and corn ready to harvest. I crafted some quality sprinklers and planted more strawberries in my greenhouse. I had some ready to harvest, and also the sweet gemberry. I saved one of the eggs from my chickens and stopped into town to buy some flour. At home, I made pancakes. I delivered them to Jody for her birthday. In the secret woods, I presented Master Cannoli with the sweet gemberry, and the statue presented me with a star drop, permanently increasing my energy. I checked the tree I repaired, and a raccoon was there. He requested some fish, a smoked chub, and 5 cockles. This was going to be a huge pain. I needed to purchase the smoker recipe from Willie and make or buy some crab pots for the cockles. I headed to the mines. I had picked up another red slime slaying request on top of the one from the day before that wasn't finished. I found them and slayed them quickly, and then turned the requests in to Mayor Lewis. I caught a chub at a fish spawning spot in the mountains before working on Clint's special order. I left with only 4 dust sprites left to slay. Plenty of mail was waiting for me on day 12. Mr. Key awarded me 10,000 gold for reaching level 25 of the Skull Caverns. Demetrius sent me the recipe for Autumn's Bounty, and Jody sent me some fertilizer. I crafted some crab pots and headed into town. I purchased an iridium sprinkler from Krobus and set up my crab pots at the beach. I purchased the crafting recipe for the fish smoker from Willie and headed to Clint's. I asked the blacksmith to crush some geodes for me and update my watering can to copper. I dropped off goodies to the museum and headed to Joja Mart, where I purchased a staggering 500 wheat seeds. These would be used to fill in any gaps left behind by my one-time crops like bok choy, yams, etc. Plus, I could use the wheat to craft beer. I made a very silly mistake and went to the desert, thinking I would be trading jade for staircases. That's a Sunday thing, not a Friday thing. I made the most of my time, though, and purchased rhubarb and starfruit seeds. I'll need both for cooking recipes, and some starfruit wine would make some very nice money. At home, I crafted 2 fish smokers and smoked the chub I caught the day before. I planted the rhubarb and starfruit in the greenhouse and headed to the mines. I had picked up a monster slaying request from the wizard for 2 ghosts, and I wanted to finish Clint's quest today. I struck gold when I arrived on floor 50, an infested floor. 2 rounds there and the quests were finished. Clint awarded me 6,000 gold. Once home, I picked up the smoked fish and delivered it to the raccoon. I turned in the request to the wizard and earned a prize token. I noticed that I had some oak resin ready to collect, so I crafted it into kegs and added strawberries to make some wine. I awoke to a chilly rain pattering on my farmhouse roof on day 13. For completing his special order request, Clint sent me the recipe for a geode crusher. I crafted one, and now I'll crush geodes here and there as I obtain them. If I find a whole bunch, I'll just take them into town. I had bok choy and a red sea of cranberries to harvest. My fairy rose flowers were ready, but I didn't pick them. I'm leaving them in the ground to create fairy rose honey from my bee houses. This will make me a lot of money, and it's also part of the shipping collection. I headed into town. It was Abigail's birthday, and I brought her an amethyst. I exchanged 2 prize tokens and obtained a sports cap and another fish smoker. I'm not planning on crafting any more smokers, as I don't plan on doing a lot of fishing, but a 3rd one is nice to have. At the beach, I checked my crab pots and had obtained 1 cockle. It was going to be slow work farming these for the raccoon, but I was slowly making progress. At the mountain lake, I fished up the walleye, who only makes its appearance on rainy fall and rainy winter days. In town, I had picked up a monster slaying request for red slimes. I quickly slayed them and turned in the request to Mayor Lewis. At the saloon, I bought a bunch of salads for the Skull Caverns. I spent the rest of the evening in the secret woods. After stump busting and slime slaying, I caught some fish I would process in the smoker overnight. I reached combat level 8. It was another rainy morning on day 14. I learned how to make trout soup from the Queen of Sauce. This will cut down on the amount of times I'll need to buy some from Willie. I had pumpkins ready to harvest and a few pumpkin seeds to plant in their stead. In my kitchen, I cooked up a fried egg, and I crafted some warp totems that would teleport me home in a jiffy. I had some extra money from selling cranberries, so I stopped by Marnie's, where I purchased a heater, an auto grabber, and 2 cows. I named them Ice Cream and Sunday. I hurried home to say hello to my new barnyard buddies and set up their home. The auto grabber will save me time and energy. I don't need to milk my cows. The auto grabber will do that for me. It was Sunday, so I took the bus to the desert. I purchased a pretty pink shirt from Sandy and traded my jade for staircases. I took a dive into the caverns. It was a good luck day, and I had eaten some spicy eel, which increased my luck just a little bit. I found treasure chest floors, and my rewards included 4 quality sprinklers, mystery boxes, and a red slime egg. I only found a little iridium, but I was really looking for a prismatic shard I could use to get the galaxy sword. I never found one. I left the mines around midnight, having reached level 56. Not bad at all. I woke up feeling very popular the morning of day 15. Jody was on my porch and invited me to have dinner with her family. I had to bring a largemouth bass with me. I could do this later today, but I'd rather wait until next year when her husband Kent is home from military service. Emily must have been waiting at the bus stop for Pam to show up to drive her to the desert for Sandy's birthday, because she also stopped by. She knew I had acquired some cloth, which I had from slaying mummies in the desert. She told me I could borrow her sewing machine whenever I wanted. My morning was very disorganized. I crafted a chest to store my goodies for my Grange display at the Stardew Valley Fair tomorrow. I had crafted an iridium bar I wanted to use, and I had an iridium quality chicken egg, but I was all over the place with my indecision. It was Sandy's birthday, so I gave her a sweet pea. I'm so glad I fixed the bus in time for her special day. In town, I stopped by Clint's to pick up my watering can. I had some geodes crushed, and I had my watering can upgraded to steel. I donated a few goodies to the museum. I checked out the special order board and accepted Biome Balance. My future father-in-law wanted someone to catch 20 riverfish. I accepted it before Willie could see. Maybe I could earn Demetrius's respect by completing this quest in one day. At the beach, I checked my crab pots and scooped up another cockle. I refilled them and utilized a tuna frenzy fish spawning spot until the fishies moved on. I gave Maru a fire quartz from one of my geodes, and she was pretty psyched. I stopped by Robin's and ordered a big barn upgrade. Barn upgrades and animals are pricey, so I'd like to get those out of the way early so I could collect lots of money from their products next year. I spent the rest of the evening working on Demetrius's special order. I didn't catch anything remarkable in the river, but I earned 1,500 gold from finishing the request. No bonus for finishing early, but I'd like to think maybe he'll like me a little bit more now. My mailbox was overflowing on day 16. Willie sent me the fish stew recipe. Lina sent me the fish taco recipe. My future father-in-law Demetrius sent me the crafting recipe for the farm computer. And Shane sent me a pizza. Pizza. Of course, I knew I had forgotten something from my Grange display. Cooked food. I was positive this pizza would propel me to first place in the Grange display. But first there were eggplants to harvest. It was time for the Stardew Valley Fair. I set up my Grange display and chatted with everyone while Mayor Lewis judged our displays. So, real talk, there's a ton of different items you can add to your Grange display. Just try to have every slot filled. I always diversify my items: fruit, veggies, animal products, fish, etc. I also try to use higher quality items. Well, would you look at that? Your favorite farmer won first place with a rating of 106. Aw, good friend Pierre didn't like that very much. I was awarded 1,000 star tokens to exchange for prizes. I decided to obtain all of the prizes this year, so in the future I wouldn't have to worry about it. I played the slingshot game, and messed around with the fish pond, and over the course of the day, I picked up the Star Drop, the Rare Crow Scarecrow, the light green rug, the dried sunflowers, a prize token, a fedora, milady, and a triple shot espresso. The fortune teller told me about my relationships, and Demetrius and I are apparently good friends. Wow, I was not expecting that. Maru and I are going strong, and that didn't surprise me. Soon the fair was over, and I returned home. I put my award-winning items back in their chest for next year, and set out my new green rug. Clint sent me the recipe for algae soup on day 17. I had broccoli, beets, and bok choy to harvest. I planted wheat in their place. I worked on the Mr. Key quest. It all started when I put a battery pack in the fuse box thingy in the tunnel. I put a rainbow shell on the box on the train platform, and 10 beets in Mayor Lewis's fridge. I would finish the quest the next time I had to go to the desert, probably Sunday. I turned in prize tokens for artifact troves and a houseplant. I picked up my watering can from Clint, and he opened my artifact troves. I found the treasure appraisal guide. Upon reading it, I can fetch better prices for artifacts. I checked my crab pots at the beach, but no cockles today. I utilized a fish spawning spot and wandered around town chatting with my neighbors. That evening, I putzed around in the mines looking for dust sprites to slay. I acquired the Bobo shirt. Yeah, not a fan of that one. I'll be sticking with my cute pink one for now. I had a letter from Sandy on day 18. She had sent me a cactus fruit. My cranberries were ready to harvest, and I could not believe how much money I had saved. My mid-sized barn was fully upgraded, and I had big plans involving buying goats. But it was Marnie's birthday, and on her birthday, she celebrates by going to the doctor. Yay. I gave her a diamond as a gift, but I'm still annoyed I couldn't buy my goats. I picked up a fetch quest in town for Granny Evelyn, and I delivered the emerald she had requested. I didn't have any plans for the day, and I wanted to gather some resources, so it was mine time. There were tons of dust sprites, but I didn't manage to complete the monster eradication goal for slaying 500 yet. I did leave the mines that evening with 112 pieces of iron, and I reached level 10 mining. I chose the prospector profession. My chance to find coal is doubled. On day 19, I had a letter from Marnie, who sent me the recipe for rhubarb pie. Caroline sent me a request for a pumpkin. I had wheat, broccoli, sunflowers, and corn ready to harvest. In my greenhouse, my first apples and peaches were ripe, and I was able to ship my sweet gemberry. My cows, Ice Cream and Sundae, were all grown up and had produced their first little milks. I sold one for the collection and processed the other into cheese. Marnie was open today, so I bought 2 goats, Billy and Nan. I stopped by the sewers and purchased an iridium sprinkler from Krobus before checking my crab pots at the beach. I had another cockle to add to the group for the raccoon. I only needed 1 more. I ran into Mayor Lewis, who congratulated me on my Grange display victory. He said Pierre needed a bowl of humble pudding, and I had to agree. I don't like Mayor Lewis, but I can appreciate a good jab. I stopped by Robin's for a horse stable and forgot that I needed 5 iron bars, so that would have to wait. I delivered an aquamarine to Linus and earned a prize token. I mined the rest of the day, and while I didn't finish any monster eradication goals, I had left with 86 pieces of iron ore, and every little bit helps. I didn't have much to do around the farm on day 20. I chopped some trees and headed into town. I requested a gold axe upgrade from Clint and had him open some mystery boxes for me. There was some hardwood, food, mixed seeds, and warp totems inside. There was also the Book of Mysteries, and after reading it, my chance to find mystery boxes has slightly increased. I turned in a prize token for Combat Quarterly, and I gained some combat experience from reading it. My crab pots didn't contain any cockles, but at home I crafted some trout soup. I was determined to catch the ice pip fish today. Hopefully it would make an appearance. My first batch of beer was ready. I collected it and added more wheat to my kegs. In the mountains, I ordered a stable from Robin. Soon I'd be galloping around Pelican Town in style. I used the minecarts to get to Joja Mart, where I unlocked the bridge repair. Tomorrow I'd be able to access the quarry. I fished on level 60 of the mines until the ice pip hooked onto my line. I caught it, and I've saved it in a chest. I might ask Robin to build a fish pond for it. Since the effects of the trout soup were still active, I tried fishing on floor 100 for some more lava eel, but all I found was trash. I worked on the dust sprite slaying goal and left just 4 sprites short. I sold some rings to the Adventurers Guild before returning home. The quarry bridge was fixed overnight. On day 21, I realized I had made a mistake. Today was Robin's birthday, and I couldn't give her a gift because she was building my stable. I learned the recipe for glazed yams from the Queen of Sauce. I had wheat, yams, broccoli, eggplants, and some fairy rose flowers ready to harvest. I needed to take the bus to the desert, but I had some time, so I delivered a frozen tear to Shane to complete a fetch quest I had picked up the day before. I arrived at the desert and popped into the oasis, where a pretty green shirt caught my eye. I had to have it. I traded my jade for staircases, rubies for spicy eels, and some extra quartz for bombs. It was a good luck day, and I ate some of my spicy eel to feel even luckier. But it was a pretty crappy day in the caverns. There were so many serpents, and if I had the galaxy sword, this wouldn't be a problem. But I was ridiculously underpowered and ended up utilizing about half of my staircases. I left with a little iridium, but it wasn't a great haul. But during the night, ice cream gave birth to a baby cow. I named her Parfait. Day 22 was one of the best days I've had since moving to the valley. My stable was ready, and with it, my horse. I named her Maple. I had ancient fruit seeds ready in my greenhouse and on the farm. I processed them in the seed maker and obtained 9 new seeds that I planted in the greenhouse with Speed Grow. I stopped by Robin's and gave her a peach to make up for missing her birthday. Gotta keep my future mother-in-law happy. I gave Mara a strawberry and our relationship is maxed out. All I need to do now is propose. In town, I picked up the special order request, Fragments of the Past. Gunther wanted 100 bone pieces, and this would be super easy. I picked up my gold axe from Clint and ordered a watering can upgrade. He processed my geodes, and would you look at that? A prismatic shard. This was a game changer. I stopped by the beach and collected the last cockle needed for the raccoon's quest. Then I was off to the desert, where I held the prismatic shard to the heavens, and the rainbow gem transformed into the galaxy sword, the most powerful weapon. Remembering Mr. Key's quest, I gave the sand dragon his last meal, a solar essence. I was instructed to check the woodpile by my house. I returned home and gave the cockles to the raccoon, who gave me 25 powder melon seeds. I will plant those in the winter. I checked my woodpile and found the club card. I will now have access to gambling at the Calico Desert and will have access to a rare crow scarecrow that I need. I brought Linus a piece of corn, completing a fetch quest. I ran to the mines and slayed the 4 dust sprites needed to complete the monster eradication goal. I collected the burglar ring. I was going to utilize it while slaying skeletons, as I will obtain more bone fragments. I worked on the special order the rest of the evening and left with 37 pieces of bone. I had a letter from Mayor Lewis on day 23. He explained that I needed a mermaid pendant to propose marriage. I would need a rainy day to purchase one from the old mariner at the tide pools. I had wheat, corn, and cranberries ready to harvest. I checked in on my barnyard buddies and was off to the mines. I finished Gunther's bone fragment special order and cleared the monster eradication goal for slaying skeletons. I turned in the bones and received 3,500 gold. I traveled back to the Adventurers Guild and obtained the skeleton mask. I had acquired a silly amount of bone swords while working on the quest, so I sold those. I crafted some bombs and blew up some of the rocks in the quarry. I chopped down the trees there with my new and improved gold axe. I foolishly attempted the quarry cave, and I don't recommend it, unless you have a higher combat level or at least some salads and maybe even a warp totem in case things get hairy. I had 2 little winter roots that didn't help restore much health. I went for broke and ran for it, grabbing the gold scythe and warping to safety. I really shouldn't be so reckless. I returned home, grateful that I hadn't succumbed to certain death. I reached foraging level 9. I had a letter from Gunther on day 24. He included the crafting recipe for the bone mill. I didn't have any crops ready to harvest, but my little goats were all grown up and had started producing little milks. I shipped one for the collection and processed the other into goat cheese. In town, I fulfilled a fetch quest for Granny Evelyn, who had requested a midnight carp. While I was there, I gifted George a leek for his birthday. I exchanged 2 prize tokens for Stardrop Tea and a cow decal. I picked up my gold watering can from Clint and requested a hoe upgrade. At the beach, I utilized a fish spawning spot. Once the fish moved on, I returned home and smoked some of them. I also started crafting winter mixed seeds. I had been saving winter roots that I found in the snowy levels of the mines. If you process them in the seed maker, they produced mixed winter seeds. I wanted as many of these as possible to plant next season, so I spent some time feeding them into the seed maker. I spent the rest of the evening in the lower levels of the mines, working on monster eradication goals and earning combat experience. I would be heading to Ginger Island soon, and my combat skill wasn't anywhere near where I wanted it to be for the volcano mines. Sure, I had the galaxy sword, but I needed my attack power increased. I would also like to find Mr. Key's secret note, inviting me to join him on floor 100 of the Skull Caverns. I drink the iridium snake milk and permanently increase my health. The earliest I'd find the note was the first day of winter. Until then, I had to keep on grinding. I returned home and found a bunch of catfish I had stored away in a chest, presumably for when I had a fish smoker. I started the smoking process so they'd be ready in the morning. George sent me the recipe for spicy eel on day 26. I had wheat and broccoli ready to harvest and rhubarb in the greenhouse. In town, I realized that I never bought any grapes, so I bought 3 grape trellises I would set up in the greenhouse. I also bought cherry, apricot, orange, and pomegranate saplings. There was an anchovy frenzy at the beach, and I fished until they moved on. I headed to Robin's, where Mara wanted me to go into the basement with her so she could show me her secret project. Creepy Demetrius was standing by the door spying on us. Mara had made a robot named Marilda to help her parents when she moved out. I'm not going to show the whole scene, but I jotted down some notes. Oh my goodness, I hate Demetrius so much. Please stop talking. Marilda doesn't want to help Demetrius because he sucks. Marilda blasted off to find intelligent life because she wasn't going to find it in Pelican Town. Anyway, I told Mara I was impressed with her inventions, and she kissed me. That's all that matters. After that ordeal, I ordered a barn upgrade from Robin. I delivered an earth crystal to Linus, completing a fetch quest. I returned to my farm and planted the grapes and saplings in my greenhouse. I cut down some trees in the cindersap forest, busted stumps in the secret woods, and worked on cleaning up my farm before bed. I awoke to a chilly rain on day 26. Mayor Lewis sent me a letter reminding me of the Spirits' Eve festival in town the following day. I had wheat and eggplants ready to harvest. I stopped by the sewers and purchased an iridium sprinkler, the recipes for the wicked statue and crystal floor, and a star drop from Krobus. I picked up my copper hoe from Clint before stopping by the beach. I purchased the mermaid pendant from the old mariner. I was off to propose to Maru. She accepted and was super adorable about the whole thing. We'd be married in 3 days. I stopped by Joja Mart and unlocked panning. I spent the rest of the day in the lower level of the mines, slaying baddies, collecting stone and gold ore. I found 2 squire helmets. The glittering boulder was removed overnight. I reached combat level 9. I did a lot of busy work around the farm on day 27. Pam sent me the recipe for stuffing, and Clint sent me a copper bar. I had a bunch of artisan goods ready throughout the day: wine, preserves, pickles, and beer. My star fruit were ready to harvest in my greenhouse. I sold the gold and silver quality and will process some of the regular quality into wine. I crafted more kegs and would soon need a shed for them as they were seriously taking over my farm. I went to the secret woods to collect hardwood, then journeyed to the mines. At combat level 9, I unlocked the iridium band, but I didn't have enough solar essence to craft it. Once I had enough, I returned home. I used up nearly all of my iridium bars, but this would be a huge help, especially in the Skull Caverns where I could find more iridium. You see, the iridium band glows, attracts items, and increases my attack damage by 10%. It was time for the Spirits' Eve festival. I purchased a rare crow scarecrow and the jack-o'-lantern recipe. Demetrius said Maru was gone for hours, but it didn't seem like he was terribly worried about her. I found her in the maze, somewhat confused. I finished the maze myself and obtained the gold pumpkin. After the festival, I sold it and headed to bed. There was a cold chill in the air the morning of day 28. I tuned into the Queen of Sauce and learned how to make artichoke dip. Willie sent me a letter informing me he had unlocked the back room of his shop. This was to say that I could visit Ginger Island once I had all of the materials needed to repair his boat. My last group of cranberries were ready to harvest. I had 189 regular quality ones that I held onto for processing. I took the bus to the desert, and at Sandy's Oasis I bought 20 more starfruit seeds. I exchanged my jade for staircases and rubies for spicy eel before heading into the cavern. I had a much easier time slaying monsters, thanks to my galaxy sword and iridium band. I left with 25 pieces of iridium that I could use to craft the bars needed for Billy's boat repair. I married Maru on day 1. We had a beautiful winter wedding, and the whole town was invited. I thought my bride looked especially pretty in her cute wedding dress. When we returned home, I gave her a diamond. I wouldn't always be able to afford to give her the nicest gifts, so I wanted to make sure that she had something special so she could remember this day. My sturgeon had asked for some omni geodes, so I hooked them up. I spent most of the day setting up iridium sprinklers and reworking my farm layout. I planted my mixed winter seeds and powder melons. Once finished, I headed to the mountains. Willie gave me a copper pan. It has limited uses, but it will be necessary at Ginger Island. I stopped in to see my in-laws. Robin said she'd miss Maru, but acknowledged that she'd see her often. Demetrius, just stop it. It's a little late to give your blessing after I've already married your daughter. I ordered a big coupe upgrade. I felt bad for my brother-in-law Sebastian, who said Demetrius was all wound up about the wedding. In town, Morris of Joja held a huge celebration in my honor, because I single-handedly restored the town to its former glory. Who needs the community center anyway? He gave me a Joja cola machine, and I think I'll keep it at my house as a reminder of how much I've achieved this year. I picked up a special order in town, Robin's Resource Rush. The carpenter wanted 1,000 pieces of wood gathered in a week. Easy peasy. My farm needed cleaned up anyway. It was Krobus's birthday, and I stopped in the sewer to give him a horseradish. I spent the rest of the evening clearing the trees on my farm. On day 2, I woke up with my quartz queen, who wanted to know how I planned to make money this winter. That was a good question. I had mail waiting for me. Krobus sent me a crafting recipe for a dark sign, Robin was selling a wood chipper, Marnie sent me some hay, and Willie wanted a squid. I chopped down more trees on my farm and finished Robin's special order. I received 2,500 gold. I headed into town when a shadowy figure was headed toward me. I chased him down, and he gave me the magnifying glass. Now I can read secret notes. I exchanged a prize token for some omni geodes and brought a fire quartz to Demetrius to finish a fetch quest. I headed into the cindersap forest where the raccoon and his wife wanted some dried crystal fruit and cactus fruit jelly. That wouldn't be too difficult. From there, I busted stumps in the secret woods. I was determined to catch most, if not all, of the winter fish. I started with the legendary glacier fish, then the perch, the lingcod, and a squid. I actually caught 2 squid, and I gave one to Willie to complete his quest. I had a bunch of mail on day 3. Robin sent me the blueprints for the stone chest. Mayor Lewis sent me 2,500 gold for completing so many fetch quests. Lina sent me a largemouth bass, and Robin informed me of the incubator she had added to my upgraded coop. I intended to utilize it later that day. My first batch of caviar was ready, and I added a cactus fruit to the preserve jar to create the jelly for the raccoons. I traveled to the mountains and ordered the deluxe coop upgrade from Robin. At the train station, the wizard asked me to retrieve his magic ink from his ex-wife, who's a witch. First, I needed to talk to Krobus. Before that, I gave Linus a cactus fruit for his birthday and maxed out our relationship. In the sewer, Krobus opened a tunnel so I could get a dark talisman I needed to get to the witch's house. While I was there, I purchased a void egg. I entered the tunnel, obtained the void talisman, and fished up the slimejack fish. At my farm, I incubated the void egg so I would have a void chicken of my very own. Back at the train station, I put the void talisman in the stone and entered the swamp. I fished up a void salmon. I also fished up a void mayonnaise and gave it to the goblin henchman. Inside the witch's hut, I retrieved the magic ink and warped back to the wizard's tower. He thanked me and gave me access to magic buildings. These cost a lot of money and resources, but with them I can create Jumino huts, warp obelisks, and the golden clock I'd need to achieve perfection. I traveled to the mine where I purchased the big stone chest recipe from the dwarf. I fished a little before returning home. Day 4 was a good luck day, which was music to my ears. I had a letter from Jody. She sent me some fertilizer. I checked in on my barnyard buddies, and I shipped my first big goat milk for the collection. I stopped by Clint's for some geode crushing and donated some goodies to the museum. I claimed the crystallarium reward and started farming jade for staircases. I took the minecarts to see the dwarf and bought 25 bombs. I traveled to the desert, and after stopping in to say hi to Sandy, I headed into the mines. I had a few goals. I wanted to work on the monster eradication goals, which include serpents, mummies, and Pepper Rex dinosaurs. Doing so would also raise my combat level that I needed to max out. I was also on the hunt for iridium, and lots of it. I wanted to make the transition from quality sprinklers to iridium sprinklers by the 1st of spring. This was a ridiculous goal, but I felt fairly confident I could at least craft a dozen by strawberry season. I took my time, slaying slimes and serpents. Some of the slimes were dropping iridium bars in addition to the little bits of ore. In the afternoon, a Pepper Rex dropped a dinosaur egg when I slayed it. I would incubate it, and once it was producing eggs of its own, I could donate the artifact to the museum. Not long after my dino discovery, I found a chest with 3 iridium bars. It was a gift. I decided to spend every good luck day at the caverns this season. Ginger Island could wait. I wanted my farm set up so that everything would fall into place once I had my sprinklers set up and my farm redesigned. I left the desert a little after midnight, having reached floor 35 with 6 iridium bars and 36 pieces of iridium ore. On day 5, I had a letter from Sandy. She had sent me the recipe for Tom Ka's soup. I crafted a whopping 15 iridium sprinklers. I would wait for a bad luck day to set them up. It was Friday, so I purchased an iridium sprinkler from Krobus. And I headed to Marnie's, where I purchased a duck I named Dandelion. I also purchased a rabbit I named Christine. And an auto grabber from my fully upgraded coop. As it was a good luck day, I was back at the desert. It was a rather uneventful trip in the Skull Caverns, but that evening I found a lucky ring. And later, I found a houseplant. I was just about to leave when I hit level 50 and found a chest containing a purple slime egg. I am not interested in slime farming, so I sold it. I left with 33 pieces of iridium. Day 6 was not a good luck day, so I was determined to fix up my farm a bit. Clint wanted an amethyst delivered to Emily, and after my basic farm chores, I dropped it off. I delivered the cactus fruit jelly to the raccoons, and the pumpkin to Caroline. I had a ton of geodes and mystery boxes, so I took them to Clint for processing. I had 1 new mineral to donate to the museum, but nothing terribly interesting from the mystery boxes. The rest of the afternoon and late into the evening, I worked on setting up my sprinklers. I still had a ton to do, but I went to bed satisfied with what I had started. I tuned into the Queen of Sauce on day 7 and learned how to cook plum pudding. Pierre was waiting for me on my farmhouse porch to inform me his shoddy little shack of a store was going to be getting new seeds in the coming year. Mayor Lewis sent me a note reminding me of the Festival of Ice taking place in the Cindersap Forest the following day. Ice fishing. Yay. The strawberries in my greenhouse were ready to harvest. I sold the gold and silver quality and started processing the regular quality fruit into seeds for the spring. It was Caroline's birthday, and I delivered a summer spangle flower to Mrs. Pierre. I imagine he's the kind of husband who would give her a vacuum cleaner for her birthday, so I wanted to make sure I got her something she really liked. I found a secret note that directed me to the truck next to Joja Mart. I exchanged a rabbit's foot for a special charm that permanently increases luck. I traveled to the desert, where I exchanged jade for staircases and rubies for spicy eel. I returned home and worked on my farm layout. Most of my time was chopping down trees and clearing space for some pathing along the southwest corner of my farm. I don't know if I'll finish my layout by spring, but that's my goal. On day 8, Caroline sent me the recipe for a vegetable medley. I had powder melons and winter forage ready to harvest. I took some of my crystal fruit and put them in the dehydrator to fulfill the raccoon's request. I spent the rest of the morning working on my farm until I had to run to the Festival of Ice. There, I chatted with everyone and bought some souvenirs, including a rare crow scarecrow, a pretty ice banner, and some snacks: pumpkin soup, cranberry sauce, and stuffing. I won the ice fishing tournament and continued working on my layout before bed. I rushed through my farm chores on day 9. The dried crystal fruit was ready, and I delivered it to the raccoons. They gave me the Raccoon Journal, and after reading it, weeds have a greater chance to yield mixed seeds. In town, I picked up the special order, Gus's famous omelet. The proprietor of the Stardrop Saloon wanted 24 eggs. Easy enough. I just had to ignore the auto-grabber in the coop for the next 2 weeks. It was a good luck day, so I rushed to the desert. I found an iridium bar, some omni geodes, and gemstones I would sell for cash. I was done for the evening and stopped into Sandy's Oasis and presented my club card to the bouncer. I met the mysterious Mr. Key and bought some tokens so I could start gambling. I had eaten spicy eel earlier, so that increased my luck, on top of the special charm and it being a lucky day. I suppose I could have also worn the lucky ring, but I don't know at what point the luck stat is capped. It didn't matter. I scored big on the slots and picked up the final rare crow scarecrow from my collection, a top hat, and some warp totems back to my farm. It was a pretty awesome day. I reached combat level 10 and chose the brute profession. I will now deal 15% more damage. On day 10, my strawberry sweetheart gave me a star drop as a symbol of her love. For collecting all the rare crow scarecrows, I obtained the deluxe scarecrow recipe. My void egg had hatched into a void chicken. I named him Sebastian, after my brother-in-law. Speaking of Sebastian, it was his birthday, so I brought him a frozen tear. I ordered my first of possibly several sheds. I am not happy with the current placement. I will be adjusting its location in the future. I have checked the beach daily for the nautilus shell that only appears in winter, and so far, I haven't found one. I ordered a hoe upgrade from Clint and asked him to open some geodes and mystery boxes. I donated a new mineral to the museum. I traveled to the secret woods to slime slay and stump bust. I returned home and crafted the bone mill and the farm computer. I can place bone fragments into the mill and they will transform into various speed grows and fertilizers. I won't really use it, but I needed to craft it for completion, and I had some extra fossils and dino bones I had collected in the Skull Cavern. I spent the rest of the evening clearing trees on my farm. I had a letter from Robin on day 11. She sent me the pumpkin soup recipe. Strawberries were ready in my greenhouse, and my little bunny had produced its first bundle of wool, which I shipped for the collection. I headed to the wizard's tower to move around some buildings using his special book thingy where you build magic buildings. I chopped some trees in the cindersap forest, and I found a secret note asking me to bring maple syrup to the secret woods. While grabbing some from my chest, I came across my dinosaur egg, so I put that in the incubator in my coop. I met a bear in the secret woods who seemed to want to get wasted on maple syrup. He had something special to show me, and I swear I had flashbacks to Linus and his tent. Anyway, he gave me special knowledge, and now salmon berries and blackberries are worth 3 times as much gold. My farm was an absolute disaster at this point, but I was determined to clean it up some more. I crafted a deluxe scarecrow and added some more crop growing areas before turning in for the night. I awoke to a very snowy day 12. The wizard had sent me a letter requesting a void essence. I'd drop that off the next time I was headed to the secret woods. It was the day of the Squid Festival, so I rushed around trying to finish up my farm chores. I stopped by the sewer and purchased an iridium sprinkler from Krobus, then headed to the beach. I still couldn't find a nautilus shell, but right away I spied a spawning spot. I utilized it and moved on to the dock when the fish moved on. I fished up a chest that afternoon that contained an ancient seed. That evening, I finished catching the 8 squid required for all of the first day's prizes. I didn't intend on returning tomorrow, so I was glad to obtain a book today, The Art o' Crabbing. After reading it, crab pots have a 25% chance to yield double. I returned home and smoked some fish, processed some geodes, and processed strawberries into seeds. I awoke to the smell of seafood on day 13. Morrow had found some crab cakes in her scrap pile and gave them to me. That was interesting and thoughtful. Emily sent me the cooking recipe for the red plate. I had so much to get done before spring, and although it wasn't even halfway through the season, I was panicking a little. I set up my shed with preserve jars and kegs. This is temporary. I'm going to upgrade my shed and have another one just for preserve jars, a separate one for kegs, but for now this was fine. In my coop, I had a duck egg and a void chicken egg. My little buddies are growing up so fast. I know I should be saving some eggs for Gus's special order, but I really don't care if I finish it or not. All I get from it is a little bit of money and a mini fridge, so it's not like I'd be missing out on a major crafting recipe. I delivered the void essence to the wizard, and while I was there, I moved my buildings around. I like this setup a lot better. I'd still have some more moving around, but I felt like I was making progress. I stopped by Marnie's and purchased 2 pigs. I named them Snow and Mist. They will be old enough to hunt for truffles by spring. I crafted more kegs and filled them with cranberries before heading to Robin's. I ordered another silo and purchased a workbench and all of the crafting recipes Robin had to offer. I dislike that I need to craft all items for perfection because I'm not going to use most of them, but hey, what are you going to do? I spent the rest of the day fixing up my farm. I had moved my coop over to the far right and added some stone fencing for it. This left the barn by itself with lots of room for potentially more barns in the future. On day 14, I tuned into the Queen of Sauce and learned how to make chocolate cake. Mayor Lewis sent me a note reminding me the night market starts tomorrow. I finished up my chores and headed to the beach, where I finally found a nautilus shell. I really hoped I'd find 2, one for shipping and one for my sturgeon who had requested one, but I was happy to ship the one I found. I stopped by Clint's and requested a hoe upgrade. I brought Dr. Harvey a coffee for his birthday, and I bought 10 bombs from the dwarf. I headed to the desert. I traded jade for staircases and headed into the caverns. It was a good luck day, and I found several floors with chests. Among them, goodies included omni geodes, a peach sapling, and cactus seeds. I left with only a little bit of iridium, but a fair amount of gems, cloth, plus I had worked on those monster eradication goals. The air was full of promise and excitement on day 15. My powder melon and winter forage were ready to harvest. I made more seeds from both. I crafted 2 looms and more mayo makers to process goodies from my coop critters. Strawberries and ancient fruit were ready in the greenhouse, and I processed both into more seeds. I realized I needed a ton more seed makers, so I temporarily arranged them near my smelting station. While they were processing, I crafted a bunch of lightning rods for my new and improved crop growing area. I currently have over 130 strawberry seeds for spring, and I think that's a good place to stop for now. It was time for the night market. I picked up a special order request on the way. Prismatic jelly. This is one of my favorite special orders because the wizard gives you the crafting recipe for monster musk upon its completion. Monster musk lures out baddies and makes the eradication goals much easier to finish. At the market, I purchased 100 cauliflower seeds as a head start for spring. I took the deep sea fishing tour and fished up 3 fish I still needed: the midnight squid, the spookfish, and the blobfish. I had more winter forage ready on day 16. I finished my farm chores and dropped off eggs at the saloon. I only needed a few more to complete Gus's special order. I went to pick up my hoe from Clint and remembered he had his doctor appointment, so I couldn't. So I headed to the mines to work on the wizard's prismatic jelly quest. I took a break to visit the night market and purchased the mermaid painting. I had forgotten to watch the mermaid show, so I took in some theater and played the melody on the shells to obtain a pearl. I putzed around slaying baddies when I found the prismatic slime. It was a good luck day, and luck plays a part in finding it, but I was so excited that I found it so easily and so quickly. I delivered the jelly to the wizard the following day. I had a letter from Clint on day 17, requesting an iron bar. I had to pick up my hoe today, so I would drop it off later. I finished up my farm chores and headed to the wizard's tower. But on the way, I noticed the raccoons had a little baby raccoon hanging out of the tree stump. They had another request: dried purple mushrooms and 5 white algae. I had already had the purple mushrooms, I just needed to dehydrate them. I was pretty sure I had the algae too. It was the wizard's birthday, and I brought him a void essence. I also brought him the prismatic jelly, completing the special order. I picked up my gold hoe and brought Clint the iron bar. I dropped off the battery packs and iridium bars to fix Willie's boat, but I was short some of the hardwood I needed, so I would just have to keep stump busting. I returned to Clint and requested an iridium upgrade to my pickaxe. I started dehydrating the purple mushrooms and took the bus to the desert, where I caught the scorpion carp and the sandfish. Back home, I scythed up some grass for my new silo and planted some powder melon and winter seeds. It was another snowy morning on day 18. The wizard sent me the recipe for monster musk, and Mayor Lewis informed me of the Feast of the Winter Star. I had to bring a gift to exchange with a secret friend. Oh, let it be Pierre, please, please. It was just Marnie. My purple mushrooms were dehydrated, so I packed them up with the white algae to deliver to the raccoons. They gave me a raccoon hat, and I don't know how to feel about that. I wish it said it was an artificial fur hat, at least. Yuck. I was off to the secret woods to slay slimes and bust stumps. I headed to the mountains and ordered a shed upgrade from my mother-in-law. I wish there was some kind of family discount. I wandered around town the rest of the day, hoeing up lots of diggy spots. One produced Woodcutters Weekly. I read it and gained some foraging experience. I chatted with my neighbors and dropped off some goodies to the museum. I didn't feel like fishing, my pickaxe was at Clint's, and my farm design was satisfactory for now. So I went to bed a little early. Willie sent me the recipe for lobster bisque on day 19. I had a greenhouse full of strawberries. I turned the regular quality into seeds and sold the rest. I have nearly 250 strawberry seeds for spring. That is ridiculous. In town, I purchased an iridium sprinkler from Krobus and stopped by the beach, where I finally found a nautilus shell to give to my sturgeon fish pond. I picked up my iridium pickaxe from Clint and headed to the cindersap forest. I stopped by the traveling cart lady and purchased Maru's portrait and a walnut dresser. I have found so many hats and shirts in the mines, I was running out of room in my chests for all of it, and the dresser would help. I busted stumps and slayed slimes in the secret woods. I dropped off the nautilus shell in my fish pond and found 77 regular quality strawberries in a chest, which I sold for some quick cash. I placed the last eggs in Gus's fridge and completed his special order. I earned 3,000 gold. I headed to the mines. Earlier, I had crafted some monster musk. I doused myself in it and worked on monster eradication goals for the remainder of the evening. I felt super lucky on day 20. I had a letter from Gus with a mini fridge. This would be very helpful in organizing some of my cooking ingredients. My shed was fully upgraded, and I had some cranberry wine ready to ship. My chores finished, I headed into town to give Granny Evelyn a stuffing for her birthday. I had purchased it at the Festival of Ice and had been holding on to it just for this occasion. I purchased some bombs from the dwarf and headed to the desert. I bought more starfruit seeds from Sandy and headed into the caverns. I found a few ladders, but I found tons of holes that allowed me to drop down several floors at once. I was annoyed that I hadn't found Mr. Key's secret note inviting me to meet him on floor 100. I could have possibly tried to make a run for it today if I had. As it was, I reached floor 86. I was on a bit of a special mission today. I only had one mineral left to donate to the museum. A prismatic shard. If I could find one in an iridium node, I could have the museum finished tomorrow. And would you look at that? The last iridium node I hit before leaving had the prismatic shard. I left with it and 79 pieces of iridium. On day 21, I tuned into the Queen of Sauce and learned how to cook pumpkin pie. I had a letter from Granny Evelyn, and she taught me how to make rice pudding. Robin had sent me a request for 10 pieces of hardwood. I checked in on my coop critters and barnyard buddies. Then I was off to town. I donated the prismatic shard to the museum and finished the mineral collection. It was a good luck day, and I traveled to the desert, where I traded jade for staircases and 10 iridium bars for the desert warp totem recipe. I entered the caverns. I didn't apply any monster musk. There were so many serpents, it was a little silly. It was a very slow day, but 2 iridium slimes dropped iridium bars, so that was helpful. That evening, I found 2 more iridium bars in a chest. So technically, it was like I had only traded 6 bars for the recipe rather than 10. I only reached level 37, and with 12 iridium ore. It's hard to imagine both the previous day and today were good luck days, when today had such a poor showing. On day 22, I was surprised to discover that I had earned 1,000,000 gold since moving to the valley. That was fantastic, but I still had a long way to go. I spent much of my morning harvesting my winter forage and turning it back into seeds that I replanted. These will more than likely not be harvestable, I'm just creating placeholders. I crafted more furnaces and rearranged my smelting area a bit before heading to the secret woods. I only started stump busting when I found the secret note I had been searching for. Mr. Key was waiting for me on floor 100 of the Skull Caverns. The next good luck day, I would take a deep dive. I headed into town and had Clint open some artifact troves and mystery boxes. I donated an artifact to the museum and was headed to Joja Mart when I hooked up a bridal shirt. I thought it was pretty, so I was going to wear it for a while. At Joja Mart, I purchased sugar, flour, and rice. I noticed there wasn't any vinegar or oil for sale. I could craft my own vinegar by processing rice in kegs, and I could process sunflowers or corn in the oil maker to make oil, but I would just buy them from Pierre another day. I picked up the special order Juicy Bugs Wanted. Willie wanted 100 pieces of bug guts. I turned in a prize token for several diamonds I would sell. I picked up a request from the wizard to slay a squid kid, so I mined the rest of the evening. After I slayed the necessary beastie, I worked on the bug guts request. I finally reached foraging level 10 and chose the lumberjack profession. All trees have a chance to drop hardwood. I sensed a new way was open on day 23. I'd have to figure out what that meant later. A baby dinosaur hatched. I named them Leah since it was her birthday too. I cooked up a pumpkin pie for Marnie's Feast of the Winter Star gift. I had strawberries and ancient fruit ready in the greenhouse, and I crafted more seeds from them. I ran into town to buy some oil and vinegar from Pierre and did a little cooking. I made a salad, omelet, bread, chocolate cake, and rice pudding. I delivered the salad to Leah for her birthday and rushed to Willie's to supply the hardwood needed to repair his boat. Back in the Cindersap Forest, I hoed up an ancient seed. I turned in the Squid Kid request to the wizard and checked out Grandpa's secret room. It had the best tools and crafting recipes. Once I leveled up some more, I have to pick something to expand upon. I stopped in the bug lair to collect bug guts, then moved on to the mines. I was able to work on some monster eradication goals while I bug hunted. The boat was fixed overnight. Leah was on my porch on day 24. She made a sculpture called How I Feel About Ghost and wanted me to have it. Aw! Lou sent me a note reminding me about the festival tomorrow, and Willie sent me a note informing me that his shop would now be open at 8 in the morning so I could get an early start to Ginger Island. I checked on my barnyard buddies and was happy to see my pigs were all grown up. I did a lot of cooking before heading to Ginger Island. It's not very fun watching me run back and forth, so here's some footage of my rescue cats, Coconut and Ophelia. I made cookies, cheese cauliflower, parsnip soup, rhubarb pie, spaghetti, blueberry tart, fried mushroom, autumn's bounty, pumpkin soup, stuffing, artichoke dip, survival burger, miner's treat, radish salad, glazed yams, fried calamari, fried eel, lobster bisque, sashimi, plum pudding, pale broth, algae soup, and tomka soup. I have a ton of fish saved for dishes I didn't have time to make, and some I don't have the recipes for yet. It was time to head to Ginger Island, and I was grateful for the food I brought with me. Once we docked, I headed to the eastern side of the island where I collected a golden walnut. I met a quiet boy and figured if I made friends with a parrot, I'd befriend him too. I headed to the volcano dungeon, and I hate it. I did pick up a cute tiger hat a slime dropped. Halfway in, I purchased the warp totem and ginger ale recipes. This dwarf was ripping me off. Everything was so pricey. I did pick up some bombs to get through the mine a little easier. At the top of the volcano, I found a prismatic shard and used it to enchant my sword. To Haymaker. More fiber is earned when collecting weeds. It also has a chance to collect hay. This is completely useless. I needed to find another shard to get something better. I had enough cinder shards to fuse my iridium band and burglar ring together. Maybe I'll wear my lucky ring now. I put my stuff in a chest I had packed and warped home. Day 25 was the Feast of the Winter Star. I spent most of the morning harvesting powder melon and turning them back into seeds. Oh, and a lot of cooking. Lots and lots of cooking. Don't worry, at the end of the year, I'll show off what I've cooked, so I won't be listing everything right now. I headed into town for the festivities and chatted with all of my neighbors. Pierre wondered if he could invent some holidays to boost his sales. Hey, you know what? I'm all for it. I propose a Joja Member Appreciation Day. You can start by appreciating me. I bought a pretty winter banner to celebrate the season. I gave Marnie her pumpkin pie, and it was time for me to get my gift. And would you look at that? My secret gift-giving friend is my good pal Demetrius. Wait, what? The tea set? The tea set? Now, if you aren't aware, the tea set is pretty freaking rare. Real talk, I have over 2,000 hours on the PC version of Stardew, and I've only received it once. Maybe Demetrius isn't that bad. I mean, he's not as bad as Pierre, or Mayor Lewis. I'll have to think about this one. Later that evening, I hung up my banner, set up my tea set, and headed to bed. I was determined to finish up Willie's special order on day 26, but first I had some mail. Shane sent me a pizza, and Gus requested an albacore. My first fruit trees were blooming in my greenhouse, so I shipped one of everything for the collection. In town, I dropped off the albacore to Gus and purchased an iridium sprinkler from Krobus. Clint had requested some coal, so I took the minecarts to the quarry and turned it in. It was the blacksmith's birthday, and I brought him an amethyst. I doused myself in monster musk and headed into the mines for bug slaying. I finished the quest and would turn in the bug guts the following day. I sold an ossified blade weapon I had found a while ago. I cleared the Duggies and rock crab monster eradication goals and obtained a hard hat and crab shell ring. In the mines, I had picked up an ancient seed I would plant at my island farm. Winter was coming to an end on day 27. I had a letter from Clint with the bean hot pot recipe. I had strawberries ready in the greenhouse. I sold the higher quality ones and kept the regular quality for wine and jelly. I cooked some food and headed to the beach. I dropped off the bug guts, completing Willie's special order. He awarded me 3,000 gold. I headed to Ginger Island and met Leo. I have a feeling I'll be seeing him around a lot. I bribed the parrots with golden walnuts, and they moved the sleepy turtle. I got to work clearing the debris and planting my ancient fruit seeds. I also planted some melon and wheat seeds I'd need a little bit later. I planted extra wheat as placeholders until I have more ancient fruit seeds. I picked up a few golden walnuts before warping home. On day 28, my cheese cauliflower cutie was excited to tackle the next year together. Aw, me too. I tuned into Queen of Sauce and learned how to cook cranberry candy. I spent the morning crafting more kegs, preserve jars, and a dehydrator. A secret note directed me to the bush behind the playground at noon on the last day of the season, and I found a Jimino plush. I spent some money to buy a stack of wood from Robin. Prices increase next year, so I may as well have a head start for more crafting. I stopped at the Desert Trader to trade jade for staircases and some omni geodes for artifact troves. I headed to the mines and slayed one bat to complete its monster eradication goal. I'm going to show off my first year's progress at the end of the video, but here's my progress for working on those goals. Not too shabby. I turned in a coal request for Clint and bought myself a cold one to celebrate my first year in the valley. I returned home to review my progress. First up, relationships. I definitely spent a good amount of time building relationships this year and gave everyone but Sam and Robin birthday gifts. Oh, and I just met Leo yesterday, so he doesn't count. The shipped collections. I have shipped most items available. I shipped a duck feather this morning, so it won't show up until the next day. Certain crops won't be available until next year. Fishing. All I have left is the legend and the 3 fish on Ginger Island. Museum stuff. Minerals are done, and I need about half a dozen artifacts. Cooking. Half of the recipes and ingredients won't be available until next year. I'm not going to bother showing what I've crafted and what I haven't crafted because I am missing a lot of crafting ingredients still, so there's no point in showing my progress for that. I'm going to leave it here, but I'll be back for next year. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, please like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you'll be notified when a new video comes out. Please leave your comments and suggestions down below. Please share the video and the playlist around if you can. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.